despite it seeming like such a blatant conflict of interest that you had people like the president of the Center for Science and the Public Interest saying, I think we have seen an extraordinary abuse of the advisory committee process to secure ends that have no basis in science. But of course, right now, there's nothing stopping them. And last month, you had the 6 peptide sellers joining with a compounding pharmacy and a pharmacy exec to vote 8-6 in favor of adding BPC 157 to a list of products that compounding pharmacies can dispense. And that's along with several other popular peptides. While the FDA, it still has to formally adopt the recommendations before the peptides can be legally compounded, and it's not 100% confirmed if and when this will happen, the industry has long been betting on good news. Samsung Biologics, for example, they recently announced plans to buy a Swiss peptide ingredient manufacturing company for about $1.8 billion. And the telehealth company, Hims & Hers, it already purchased a peptide manufacturing facility last year, and they're building out a clinical strategy for the substances, putting them in one of the best spots to capitalize on any changes quickly. And with that, the initial move by the FDA to get this process going back in April, that it's sending the company's shares soaring nearly 50% over the course of a single week. And then the advisory panel's vote saw them going up almost another 8%, with one estimate suggesting that the company will occupy a whole 1/5 of a $2.2 billion expansion in the peptides market in the US just next year. And that's, as I mentioned, overall, it's been estimated that the global market for peptides, which has already been valued at around $140 billion, it could top $295 billion by 2023 if the Trump administration relaxes manufacturing rules. Right? And if the agency follows the panel's recommendation, they make all that money without having to run large trials, publish results, or convince independent scientists. And so you have the situation where this multi-billion-dollar industry that's promising to make you feel stronger, better, and healthier, it may get to just keep growing without ever having to prove its products work. And remember, this is not about villainizing all peptides. Again, there are actually over 100 peptide medications already approved by the FDA, but it's now more than ever turned into a situation of science and safety versus quick profits. And then there's more we gotta dive into in just a minute, but first let me thank a sponsor and say, nothing exposes your age faster than realizing a fun night now. It requires a risk assessment for the following morning. And I will say, with my crashing out tour coming up, I cannot afford to spend the next day moving like my operating system failed to update. And that's why today's sponsor, ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic, it's become part of my travel routine. Right, ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. And the way it works is that when you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. And it's a buildup of this byproduct, not just dehydration, that is to blame for rough days after drinking. But pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break that byproduct down. So just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. And again, with my tour coming up, we're just 2 weeks away now. Like, this matters. There's gonna be dinners, late nights, reasons to celebrate, but also travel days, call times, and shows that do not care how late I stayed out. And that's why ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol has earned a spot in my travel bag. It works overnight so that you can enjoy the evening and still be ready for what's next. So hey, head to zbiotics.com/DeFranco and use code DeFranco for 15% off your first order. Or hey, just scan that QR code to get started. But then diving right back into the news, we've got to talk about this scandal that just will not stop scandaling involving the DNC, or the Democratic National Committee. Because as you might remember, they drafted that 2024 autopsy that was meant to diagnose how the Democrats could actually lose to Trump in the last election. And when he was elected to reform the party last year, you had the DNC's new chair, Ken Martin, pledging to release the full report when it was done. But then what you saw last December is that he backtracked. He said, actually, we're just going to release an executive summary with lessons for the future. And so that after promising a full throttle deep dive, but then just kind of giving the tip and going, it ended up making a lot of people upset. Right? Because you had them feeling like party leadership, they weren't being transparent about their failures. And so then you had that leading to things like this very contentious interview with Martin on Pod Save America.
Why not release the full report? What's in the report that you wouldn't want
well, first off,
to publicize?
There's no smoking gun in the report. And I know that's what everyone's so eager to learn. The smoking gun. Guess what, John?
But if there's no smoking gun, why wouldn't you just release it then?
Because we want to keep the focus on the lessons.